Research from Domain and from CoreLogic shows strong house price performance right across Australia. Well, I'm predicting a national property boom in Australia in the near future, and the latest figures from these three major sources confirm that the strong upcycle is actually already underway in many parts of the nation. The Domain figures show that every capital city had growth in their median house prices in the September quarter, except Melbourne, where there was no change in prices, according to those figures. Apartment markets have been less bullish, and some capital cities have dropped, impacted by high CBD vacancy rates in the big cities. But even there, the national averages were a very small rise in the September quarter and a 2.2% rise annually. The numbers overall, I think, are quite remarkable amid a pandemic-induced recession. In the September quarter, house prices grew by 2.8% or more in four of the capital cities: Adelaide, Hobart, Darwin and Canberra. Hobart actually rose 6.9% and Darwin 6.6% in the September quarter alone. Many readers will be scratching their heads because we never hear about these markets, do we? We hear a lot about Sydney and Melbourne, but when's the last time you read an article about the strong Adelaide housing market or Canberra property prices? How many are aware of the strong recovery underway in Darwin and also in Perth? In annual terms, all capital cities have house prices higher than a year ago. The national average is a rise of about 5%, but individual cities have done much better than that. Hobart house prices are 16% higher than a year ago, and Canberra's up 10%. Sydney, Adelaide and Darwin have all risen 7% over 12 months. And this reflects what we have observed month by month since the start of the pandemic based on CoreLogic figures. Sydney and Melbourne have had numerous months in which house prices have dropped, but the other capital cities have had growth months most of the time. Canberra has produced house price growth in each of the past 8 months, and Adelaide has had growth in 7 of the 8 months since February. Perth, Brisbane and Darwin have recorded some down months but bounced back in August, September and October, with Darwin showing particularly strong figures. Now, most regional markets have had sustained growth throughout the pandemic period since February as well, with regional Tasmania delivering growth in every one of the past 8 months, while regional Queensland and regional New South Wales delivered uplift in 7 of the past 8 months. Now, this strong showing by regional Australia is also seen in the Domain figures recently published. Despite the overall positive performance in the capital cities in the December quarter, the capitals were actually outperformed by the regional markets. Domain reports that many regional markets have seen double-digit increases in their house prices, with some rising as much as 30% over 12 months. Regional markets in Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania and Queensland have all had outstanding growth performances. Amongst the best have been the Southern Grampians in Victoria, up 31%, Byron Bay in New South Wales up 29%, Forbes in New South Wales up 22%, and the Derwent Valley in Tasmania up 28%. My own price analysis in recent weeks confirms strong regional uplift, with notable growth at the top end of the Sunshine Coast market, with some suburbs up about 30% in annual terms. Now, this week we had the weekly report on prices from SQM Research, and it shows that all 8 capital cities have recorded growth in house prices in the past month, and 7 of the 8 have had annual price growth. SQM's prices index shows that the national average was a 2.3% rise in the rolling month index, that's the month to the 10th of November, and a 5.6% in annual terms, with regional markets again showing better growth in the capital cities. The capital cities were headed by a 2.9% rise in Hobart, Perth was up 1.7%, and even Melbourne returned to growth with a 0.4 monthly rise. In annual term, Hobart leads with a 10% increase, Melbourne's up 7%, Sydney's up 6%. Now think about it, we've all seen the headlines, which was particularly strident in March and April, forecasting a collapse in property prices. But residential property has not collapsed. It's done rather the opposite. Prices are rising in most locations around Australia. So the national property boom I'm forecasting is already underway in many parts of the nation. And the infrastructure-led economy recovery planned by federal and state politicians will supercharge this trend. Stay tuned.